recruiting team to go ahead and then recruit for the position. But from an HR standpoint, we don't dictate the job descriptions. That is really on the department to do that, because obviously they're the experts, and then we just try to facilitate what they need.
It doesn't have to fit a particular job category that we have in place. It can be created as a completely new one.
Correct. We're willing to customize to exactly what they feel is necessary. And then Tani's team goes through the analysis to make sure we're market competitive with it within affordability of our budget.
Okay. I don't know if Laura's still on, but if she could maybe follow up. I don't know what's going on, why we can't fill that for 2 years.
Councilmember Bergan, I will follow up on that position.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Other questions for Ryan and team on the pay resolution? Okay, do we need to forward this? Is this a move on to council, Ryan? Yep. So any objection to moving this on to study session? Okay. Next up is the employee policy book. And is this you again, Ryan?
This is.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I am, hopefully you can see what I'm, actually, let me share it right now. Okay. What we're doing from an HR standpoint is in collaboration with the city attorney's office, making sure that we have good advisement from them. We recently completed a review and extensive revision of the employee policy book. City code does state that the city manager must notify city council of policy changes, subject to council wanting to call up for any discussions. The revisions of the employee policy book, they are in alignment with federal and state laws, but they are really focused on clarity of employee expectations and then user-friendly formats to make it a little bit easier for employees and for supervisors to navigate. The Management Finance Policy Committee packet, it does include a multiple page document that is a summary of changes, and then it also includes the new employee policy book. Wanted to just take a couple minutes just to make sure we're all on the same page with the purpose as well as the intent of the employee policy book. From a standpoint, from a HR, but from an administration standpoint, we want to make sure we're establishing clear policy expectations for employees. It sets workplace code of conduct. It guides employment decisions. It includes, for example, like layoffs, benefits, paid time off programs. Making sure that state and federal legal obligations are covered within the employee policy book. Defines employee rights and protects employer against employee lawsuits and claims. So on the intent and objectives of the changes for the employee policy book, so the why of updating the policy book, we wanted a new format and structure. We thought the other one was pretty cumbersome. So this will be a lot more user-friendly. We wanted to be focused on policies. We felt there was a lot of procedural and administrative items, and we think those should be in guidelines or they should be in business policy memorandums, and this would just be focused just on employee policies. We needed to update city policies. There were some decisions, some systems that happened throughout the whole city, moving to Workday, just a lot of new laws, regulations, and systems that did require us to update the policy. It aligns more freedom for employee performance management. As we've talked a lot about, we are shifting to performance management. So we did make some changes within the policies to help support that shift. And I wanted to at least show you the process that we went through. We've got involved all the key stakeholders, so the executive management. We're working directly with each council appointee and having them review and provide feedback, each department head, and then their key stakeholders. Payroll's a key partner, legal, the unions as well. And then, of course, going through the Management and Finance Policy Committee, study session, and then regular council meeting. I am not going to go through the details of the summary of significant change document unless there are some items you did want me to cover. I'm more than happy to do that. But here's a list of some of the more significant changes that we made, from title and focus to how we're defining employee types, how we're defining employee statuses, non-discrimination and anti-discrimination, the disciplinary process, employee conduct and performance. So you can see it's a pretty extensive list of some of the key significant changes, but I'm definitely more than happy to cover or review any of those items. So really, the question for council is, does the policy committee support us following the city code, notifying mayor and council of the revisions, and then move it to study session?
Any
And then, of
questions
course, I'm here for questions.
Yeah, questions for Ryan?
Nope, looks good.
Any objection to moving it forward? Okay, that's the direction. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Next up, 4F, purchasing ordinance. Who's doing this one? This Brian?
Councilmember Zvonek, this should be Bryn Fillinger. I don't know if she's able to, she's still on. And I'm looking for her.
Let me send her a message and see if I can get her.
Don't see her on.
We can't see people, really.
No, just names. I don't see.
You want to skip over and then we can see if we can get Bryn back on
Sure.
if we
Yep.
go to the next item.
No problem. So 4G, nonprofit agreed upon procedures results.
I am Nancy Wishmeyer, City Controller again. And with us today also is Marcy Ardan, the Managing Director at Forvis LLP, the city's external auditors. So last year at the June 28th, 2022 Management and Finance Policy Committee meeting, the committee requested a third-party review of nonprofit spending. And the committee determined that the best, most cost-effective approach was to have Forvis LLP perform agreed-upon procedures as an add-on to their annual audit. And then at the August 23rd, 2022 Management and Finance Policy Committee meeting, the committee reviewed and approved the draft agreed-upon procedures that were prepared by staff in Forvis. So now Forvis has completed their agreed-upon procedure review of nonprofit spending, and the report is attached. And just to give you a quick overview, the agreed-upon procedures covered expenditures that the city made to nonprofits between January of 2020 through December of 2022. And Forvis randomly pulled 30 nonprofits for testing. And just of note, the auditors reviewed the most recent Form 990s or financial statements to see that the nonprofit was reporting government contributions in at least the amount that was given to them by the city. And no issues were noted in that testing, except there were 3 nonprofits who did not provide financial information to the auditors. The auditors also reviewed the Federal Audit Clearinghouse website for any single audit findings. There were 22 of the nonprofits selected that could not be found on the clearinghouse, which indicates that they were not required to have a single audit or they had not completed it as of the date of the auditor's report. Also, the auditors reviewed random samples of payments to each of the nonprofits, and they looked at the reimbursement requests to make sure that the payments requested from the nonprofits contained support that the expenditure actually occurred and that it was in accordance with the agreements of, or the terms of the agreement with the city. And they noted no issues in that testing. Does the committee have any other questions for staff or for Forvis?
Yeah, Councilmember Bergan.
Yeah, did you say 22 were not found to, what was that statement?
That's correct. Yeah, so one of the tests was to look at the Federal Audit Clearinghouse website, and that's the website that contains single audit reports from across the nation. And that was just one of the tests that if one of the nonprofits was required to have a single audit, we wanted to look to see that they didn't have any findings. So we took a look, or the auditors took a look at that website and determined the 22 of the ones that they had selected for testing were not on the website. And so again, that was either because they weren't required to have a single audit, presumably because they were small and didn't require a single audit, or they had not completed the audit as of the date of the auditor's report.
Okay, so those, I understand like those that weren't required, but those that didn't complete it, like what happens?
Well, because they had not completed it, they weren't required to have it completed because of the date of the report. So if we
Nancy, do you want to do, can you, do you want to finish, Nancy, answering that question? Can Nancy not hear? Can anybody hear me?
I can
I
hear you.
can.
Okay. Nancy, can you hear me? Nancy cannot hear me. Okay.
Can you hear me? I can help in her answer.
Yep, go ahead. We can hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so not everyone, if they don't receive over $750,000 of federal awards, they're not required to have a single audit. So not every single nonprofit would necessarily be required to if they don't get a large amount of federal funds. Sometimes it's a strategy for nonprofits not to get a large amount of federal funds. So it wasn't unusual that we found the number that we didn't find, but for the ones where we did, you can see if they had findings, what the nature of their findings was and how that would impact the city's funding.
Thank you.
So one of the things that I'm gonna, any other questions, and I'll add something to it if not. So one of the things I think that would be helpful with this, I think in order to make it actionable for us with this information is to have a look at any of the nonprofits that we give to on a recurring basis and use this as a data point, and not necessarily to say if they didn't have, if they weren't found in the clearinghouse that we wouldn't give to them, but it would be a question as to why not, and it might be a simple answer. But I do think the 3 that said no to providing financials is a little bit of a red flag, at least for me. And I think that just at least knowing that, again, if it was a one-time grant, we've already given it, probably not much we can do at this point except for know that in the future. But I think that this type of information will be helpful as we consider future grants, to nonprofits that come and ask us for resources, and particularly the ones that we give on an ongoing basis if they were included in this. Any other questions on this? Okay. Well, did somebody tell me that Bryn was on, or was I hearing things in that?
Yes, it looks like I see her on.
Oh, there she is. Okay, great. Bryn, do you want to go? We'll go back to 4F, the purchasing ordinance.
Okay, and you can hear me okay?
Hear you fine. Yep.
Okay. And Nathan Jones is gonna, I'm having some other issues with the computer. He's gonna share the slideshow for us.
Great.
Nathan, are you on? Nathan?
Yes, I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep. Do you want to go ahead and share the slideshow?
Yes. See if I can do that. Okay. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. So this item is for a proposed ordinance to change Article 6 of Chapter 2 of the City Code pertaining to contracts and purchasing and other related matters. The updates to purchasing code are being presented in order to streamline the purchasing process to allow for more timely and efficient delivery of goods, services, and construction. These updates were to be brought forward to the Procurement Advisory Committee last Thursday. I had to change that last minute, and I'll be presenting to them tomorrow. The most notable updates follows. So the first section here adequate funding required. This is a section of city code that requires departments to submit a written request signed by the department in order to initiate the purchasing process. And our current state is, well, obviously funding request budget is already appropriated by council in the current year's budget. Current state requires the deputy city manager to authorize requests over $25,000. We would like to propose that be changed to allow for the appropriate department director or designate to authorize the request. Okay. Sections 2-670. Formal competitive bidding and requests for proposals. Currently, the threshold for formal bids and requests for proposals is $25,000. That threshold was established in 2001. And in today's dollars, that translates to $44,035. We would like to propose that we raise the threshold for formal written processes to 50,000 or more. Okay, also under this section of code, there's a threshold for requiring bid bonds in the amount of 5% of the bid for construction projects of 25,000 or more. And of course, the bid bond protects the city in the event the successful bidder fails to enter into a contract with the city, and we incur additional administrative costs in awarding to a second contractor or having to rebid the project. We are proposing that threshold be raised to $50,000 or more to align with the proposed change in thresholds. Okay, 2-671, awards to lowest responsive bidder or most advantageous proposal. As part of that section, our current state, it also authorizes job order contracting for engineering services, master engineering services, and other job order type contracts. We are proposing that this section be updated to specifically authorize job order construction contracting. This can simplify and expedite the construction procurement process so work can begin faster. Okay, authority to make awards. This section currently establishes council reporting requirements, either through purchasing's weekly report to council or approval at a formal council meeting. Those items that are taking to formal council are awards of $50,000 to just under $2 million when less than 3 bids or proposals are received. This includes non-competitive awards, and then all awards of $2 million or more go to formal council. What our proposal is that we allow for all awards of $50,000 or more to be reported on purchasing's weekly report to council, subject to call up, rather than requiring approval at a formal council meeting. And this is a comparison of the awards since 2020 that have gone to formal council for approval. So you can see it's a small subsection of those awards. And in order to provide transparency, we do post the weekly report on the purchasing page of the city's website. And so it gives transparency. Anyone can go in and find that and see what proposed awards. Yeah. Okay, informal bidding currently allows the purchasing manager to establish written procedures and publish procedures for solicitations to award purchase orders and contracts in an amount less than $25,000. The proposal is to increase the threshold to less than $50,000. And departments will be responsible for informal bidding in accordance with written guidance from purchasing. And awards less than 25,000 will not require an informal process. However, departments will still be required to consider price reasonableness. Okay, 2-676, change orders. This section establishes council reporting requirements for change orders, either through purchasing's weekly report to council or approval at a formal council meeting. Currently, formal council approval is required for change orders of $100,000 or more cumulative, and change orders for construction contracts that exceed contingency. We're proposing that all change orders over $50,000 be reported on the weekly report to council, subject to call-up. And we're proposing no reporting of change orders for construction contracts within contingency. Okay. Surplus stock. This section allows for donations of surplus stock if items are not claimed by any department in the city. Items may be donated to charitable or nonprofit organizations. Currently, an item with an estimated value of 500 or more requires a city manager to notify city council of the intent to donate 10 days prior to the transfer. And we are proposing to increase this threshold from 500 to 5,000, which would align with the city's capitalization program. Mandatory requirements in city contracts currently require performance and payment bonds for construction contracts of $25,000 or more. We're proposing to increase the threshold for performance and payment bonds to $50,000, again, to align with the proposed increase in thresholds. And with that, are there any questions?
Questions from the committee for Bryn? Any concern? Oh, go ahead, Councilmember Bergan.
Okay, so doing the weekly report rather than going to council, I'm just curious, like, we get so many emails that I don't know if council people are going to really pay attention to weekly reports. So I guess my question is, right now, everything is on consent. So we at least we can see it in our packet, and then we can decide to pull it. So most things are never pulled. So I don't know why would it not stay the, stay the same?
Right. I understand the question. We really are trying to make the purchasing process more streamlined and more efficient for the departments. And when an award goes to formal council, it can add another month to the award process.
Okay, but from a transparency perspective, I mean, the public doesn't see the weekly reports.
It is available on the website.
Oh, it is available, but no one's going to look that up. So.
Councilmember Bergan, I think that you make a good point, but I think that because nobody's going to look at our consent agendas either, because to your point, we just say that you approve, or they're all approved, they go through. And so unless you're looking for it, but it is available for those that on the website, there's the purchasing link on our website. And I think, as we've seen the costs and the ability to just get things moving, I think it makes sense to do it this way. And for the same reason that you think it makes as much sense just to come to council, because it's a rubber stamp in most cases, and we can look at it. I think that it'll just become, and I think we should bring this up when it comes to the rest of our colleagues to say, hey, look, we know we get a bunch of emails, but if you're really interested in these purchasing, they're not going to be on our council agendas the way they had been in the past. So you got to watch for these emails.
Well, I guess I still have an issue with it, because at least it gives me the opportunity to see it when it's on the council packet, even though for the most part we don't ever pull it. But I mean, I know Councilmember Jurinsky's pulled a couple of them, and I guess what I do understand the time frame that is the problem, that it would take, so I don't know. I just don't think anybody.
What was the threshold again for that?
To go to the formal council meeting, it's,
Yes.
the current state is, anywhere to 50,000 to just under 2 million. If it's a single or sole source, or we have received less than 3 bids or proposals through a formal process. And, yes, well, yeah.
Bryn, could you go back to that slide that shows how, many actually go on the weekly report versus what goes to city council, please?
Sure. Nathan,
this
this
is-
is the bar graph. Sorry.
Yeah, it's the bar graph. So Councilmember Bergan, what we're trying to emphasize here is a majority of the items currently today go on the weekly report. And very few of the items go directly to the council agenda. And so those are really the minority items that go to council because they have been sole source or various other exceptions to our procurement process. And so in general, most things have gone to the weekly report and have been available for call up. This is just really expediting the rest of the items to go through this process in a more expeditious process. So this would make everything really consistent and available to the public to be reviewed, as well as to council to be reviewed and pulled up if there are any specific questions.
Okay, well, so what goes to council still? Over 2 million?
Over 50,000.
No, but with the new policy.
We're proposing it, we do 50,000. Oh, go ahead, Roberto.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
No, I guess my question is, you're talking about the 50 to 2 million and the exceptions with single source, but I just need to know what will we see on our packet that's not that different than the report.
Yeah, we're proposing that everything go on the weekly report.
Right. And even if 1.5 million.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like that.
Well,
Zvonek, can I-
at 1.5 million, again, I apologize, Berta, you go ahead.
I just wanted to step back a little bit, and this might have been a good conversation. Remember, Councilmember Zvonek, when we were doing the red tape committee, we were really trying to figure out effective ways for firms. Really, when you look at the through line for all of these changes, it's really when we have contractors and bidders, it's very difficult to work with government because it takes so long to get things through the process. So some of the things that we have here are all really trying to address firms who have to, carry until they can get a contract all the way through, and looking, not any one contract is the same, but typically it adds 3 to 4 weeks in a council approval process, or all the other items that we've put forward in which we have signature processes, dollar amounts that have not been adjusted for inflation, that really trying to get more of our processes in line and efficient to be able to get those dollars into the community, right? Into the projects, into bills and so forth, and streamlining process. Now, there's a whole menu of changes. There's a lot there. There's kind of an a la carte menu. We think all of them are within that same theme of trying to be more efficient and getting dollars out into the community. In the case of the one that you've raised, we could probably play with, under $1 million, $1.5 million and see, but it's still going to be a very small fraction of the numbers. We also talked, anticipating your questions, about doing different publications of the weekly report than what we're doing now, right? So much more publicly facing, better positioning on the website, better positioning on your council website, putting it in different places so that people can see that, not only you, but the general public, of what's on the weekly report, if we raise that threshold to what it is currently, so there's more visibility. So we could do that more, because I agree, the weekly report right now is really, you got to be within the city to know about that, right? Most of the time, the general public really doesn't have a feel for that. So we can publicize that differently, but we just felt like on the tail end, nobody's pulling these bids out. Generally, it's very extremely rare, but yet we're adding anywhere between a month and 6 weeks before a firm can get on board to do the work. And so
Okay.
that's kind of the rationale.
Well, then that's fine. So when it goes on the website, I hope it's not going to be like the development plans that you can't find. That are like,
I think, like what Roberto, and to your question, I think we'll have to look and have conversations about where a better place might be for those.
okay.
And just
Okay.
one quick clarification too. Awards up to just under 2 million, if they're competitively solicited and we receive 3 or more proposals, those would go on the weekly report.
Okay.
Any other questions for Brandon team? Any objection to moving these proposed changes board to study session? Okay, seeing none, the next up, we have item 4H, the internal audit for Q3.
Sure. And just to double check, did we skip Scott?
No, Scott's next.
Okay, perfect. All right, let me share. I was having computer issues as well.
Did we lose you? Michelle gone?
Looks like she's on the screen. Maybe she's having technical difficulties as well.
There you go. Hey, Michelle. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. You're back.
I'm just going to read through the presentation. I feel like that might just be a little easier with the technical issues today.
Yes.
So Michelle Crawford, City Auditor. So this is our third quarter update. So overall updates for us, annual citywide and police audit plans are in the final stages and we'll be bringing those back in November. Currently underway for engagements is a citywide, completed this quarter was citywide governance practices, IT operational assessment, and APD calls for service response. Currently active is facilities management, review of non-competitive purchase processes, and police property and evidence. The addition to the audit plan was the addition of the police property and evidence audit to the police plan. In the backup, there will be a slide on engagement tracking. So for engagements that had outstanding recommendations as of September 30th, 39% of all recommendations remain outstanding. And there's additional details in the backup as far as which engagements those are and how many of those recommendations remain pending. So completed this quarter, APD calls for service response. This was presented at public safety. So I'm just going to give a really high level overview. The audit objective was to determine the level of efficiency and effectiveness of APD's response for the specific calls for service. And our conclusion was APD should better evaluate how it responds to specific calls and utilize call data better. Recommendations included relating to how they respond to certain calls for service, measuring and monitoring response times, update to policies, and collaboration. We also completed the governance practices. Shri, I'm going to go ahead and go over that one since the technical issues. The audit objective for that one was to assess the state of city governance practices in relation to prevailing standards to determine where improvements are needed. The audit conclusion was we conclude the City of Aurora has good governance practices in place, but also has areas to improve and implement government leading practices. We recommend executive management implement its action plan to establish a formal and standardized annual performance review for city leadership. Also completed for the final engagement was the IT operational assessment. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on this one. The audit objectives was to evaluate the effectiveness of the current IT organizational structure in context of executing its mission. and also to identify additional risk areas for future audit engagements. Our audit conclusion was IT requires a comprehensive action plan to address critical areas such as organizational structure, communication, project management, and overall support for the city. The methodology for this audit was we interviewed city employees and IT employees, along with evaluating a third-party survey that IT had engaged with. Our interviews aligned with those third-party survey findings. Our recommendations for this engagement is that IT should review the results of those surveys with their employees and city leadership. IT should also develop a clearly outlined action plan, including the following with timelines. Strategic vision and plan. Develop a clear vision and plan to align with the city's and department's goals. For organizational structure, address any necessary adjustments to organizational structure and establish clear roles and responsibilities among IT staff to enhance efficiency, accountability, and effective resource allocation. For communication and collaboration, address silos within IT and develop strategies to foster effective communication and collaboration. For project management, develop a standardized project management methodology and prioritization framework that considers both objectives and the specific needs of departments. And for department-specific support, foster stronger relationships and customer service between IT and city departments with unique needs. For example, the police department, public works, housing, and community services. The full engagement reports for all of those are included in the backup. And with that, I can take any questions.
Questions for Michelle? Go ahead, Councilmember Bergan.
Maybe you answered this. When would they have to complete that? Or is there a timeline?
Yep, so we assigned recommendations. We assign one for each of those. I believe for all of those areas, we gave until September 30th of 2024. And I think Scott's going to go into detail on some of those areas for the IT one and some things they've already started. And so that's the targeted date.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Other questions? Okay, thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Scott, now you're up. Is Scott on?
I am, sir.
There
Thank
it
you.
is.
So
Yeah,
give me just a moment. If you can hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I'm just going to share the PDF version just because WebEx has been acting up. That way I can see if there's any problems. So, thanks for the opportunity to present to you. As Michelle mentioned, they actually started some of this engagement in about this time last year. And so we actually partnered with Audit on this approach. And some of the areas that Michelle highlighted were areas that we were also discovering under some of our own research and into the different issues and operations. So actually, I do have the specific objectives that we have outlined to address the findings in the audit report. So I'll go through each one. But as Michelle mentioned, the strategic vision and plan, organizational structure, communication and collaboration, project management, and then department-specific support. So actually in March of 23, and as it's noted in the audit's report, they wrapped up their interviews and their findings about the same time. It was in March of this year. We had actually rolled out a new strategic roadmap and vision plan for the IT department in March of this year as well. And it was presented to management staff of the directors and city management in April. And that was developed in collaboration with internal audit, some of the input from all the different business units across the city, as well as input from both Jason Batchelor and Roberto Venegas. So specific to each of those things, as they mentioned, there's a lack of a vision and mission statement. So we did roll these out in March of this year. The IT department's vision statement is to be, our goal is to be the model of a valued business partner. We will continuously collaborate with the business partners across the city to deliver beneficial business solutions that maintain and then improve the productivity of the business. And we do kind of call that out separately in our mission statement here. And there's a reason why for it. So our mission is to maintain and then improve the productivity of city employees, ensuring that our business partners always have the technology available to do their jobs. It's our primary responsibility. Secondarily, our mission is then to investigate and explore existing and emerging technology, discovering more efficient and effective ways to support the city's operations. And the reason that we paired that apart and split that out is because the IT staff over probably since the beginning of time have been tasked with multiple duties. They have to handle support requests that were received. break fix tickets, so something is broken, it's not working, and work on projects at the exact same time. And so it's a jumble of work coming in every single day. And one of the big issues that we heard through the audit findings, as well as the third-party diagnostic reports, is that, customer support, where sometimes people submit tickets and it takes a long time to get resolution to those tickets. So we've altered the approach and said that handling support requests and tickets are actually the top priority. And then our work on projects will then go forward and we're still going to work on those, but those will come in secondary and ensure that we keep people up and running to get their jobs done first before we focus on the project work. Excuse me, sorry, I skipped ahead there. Second area finding was around communication and collaboration. So specifically, again, as audit mentioned, there were, as reported by IT staff, some various silos going on inside the department. And that is a big cultural issue that we've been facing for some time now. But we have, again, since March, been taking specific steps to address some of those, which includes some better cross-team training and cross-team collaboration and just ideas on how to approach some of our processes and the issues that we're facing. So in Q3 of this year, we formalized and stood up a weekly stand-up meeting between the supervisors. So each supervisor oversees a small team of people that specialize in a specific area. So on a weekly basis now, those supervisors for 30 minutes are meeting and collaborating to say, what is on deck this week? What is it that my team is working on? And what do I need from other teams to be successful? And each supervisor goes through that same list and shares it with each other. And since we've been doing that, they're much more informed about just the level of activity that's going on. And they've actually been able to get quicker service and response to their areas because now they're collaborating and planning for the upcoming work more tightly than they did before. We instantiated the same thing between the IT management group as well. And that has also been a huge improvement in that area, the communication. A lot of times they're looking at the specific areas of their divisions and what their divisions are working on, but they're not necessarily been looking at the needs of the other divisions across IT. So that has likewise been at a higher level view, effective communication and breaking down some of the barriers there. We are starting recurring training this quarter on our processes, programs, and technology. The reason we call that out is a lot of our processes have been homegrown over the years. And so one of the focuses we are looking at starting in Q4, and will take several months to do, it's probably going to take through midsummer of next year, is we're going to standardize and use more of industry best practices as well as industry standards. And part of the reason that's homegrown, a lot of the issues that we've been facing really tie back to the downturn in 2008. And I'll mention a little bit more about that later on. But like other divisions across the city, IT had layoffs and we weren't able to recover from that. And because of that, we developed a lot of homegrown processes to address some of the ongoing operations and issues. And so we're going to reevaluate those and say, now we need to go back to industry standards because now we have a much cleaner way of reporting and measuring our performance and measuring how we're lining up to the city's objectives. So we're going to instantiate ongoing training regarding those process changes. Instantiate ongoing training around our standing programs, those things that are just recurring, things that we just have, work that has to be done that is on a routine and regular basis, and the new technology that is being deployed, ensuring that across the department, everybody is aware of what is being rolled out and what the purpose of it is and what the capabilities are. So as they are speaking with other lines of business across the city, they're aware of our overall capabilities and can recommend solutions that may fit a need that the departments are having. This quarter, there's 2 additional roles that we're instantiating as they are jobs as another job is assigned to the staff. We don't have new staff to do these, but one is a business relationship, and this is an industry standard role. That purpose of that role is to be more at the strategic, operate at the strategic level with each of the different business units. So they'll be meeting with the departmental directors and or the senior leadership of those departments to really understand what is it that you have coming in the next quarter, what's in your strategy, what's in your roadmap over the next quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters, or 4, and really try to project out what do you see your needs being as an operating department to function over the next year. The second role is business success manager, and that's more at the tactical level. So these are the day-to-day operations, What are the areas that you're struggling with? It could be the support ticket issue. Could be where you have an ongoing, continuing issue with printing or Adobe or something. What are those day-to-day operational challenges that your groups are facing? And let's see how we can get in together and collaborate to fix those problems. Maybe it's the fact that something was rolled out incorrectly. Maybe it's really old technology and it's way due for replacement. Maybe it's something that it was a lack of training when it was rolled out. They didn't have the appropriate training to go with it. So on that tactical level, they're going to be doing that. On those two areas, I would like to say that I appreciate Chief Acevedo because he has partnered up sort of on a beta test of these approaches with us. So we actually started this approach in Q3 of last year with APD. I'm sorry, Q3 that just passed with APD. And we are lining up resources across multiple divisions within APD to focus on the business success role. And the business relationship manager role has actually been in place since the beginning of this year. And so far, we're actually have a much more effective communication and a lot better targeted results. The crime lab was the first group that we really rolled out the BSM role. And we've already been able to improve some of their operational efficiency by eliminating emails and going to a more streamlined, centralized system for some of their equipment ordering, their supply ordering, things like that. So we're already seeing positive results, and so far, both Chief Acevedo and I have been pretty happy with what we've seen so far. We're also going to be standing up this quarter a transparency portal because as you look through the interviews that audit conducted, as well as those third-party diagnostics, there's a lot of misunderstanding of what is IT versus what is, for example, maybe it's under purchasing's purview. Maybe it's a tie-in that we have with Terry's team on some of the audit requirements that we're working on. Could be something with city legal that we partner with them on. So there's a lot of assumptions that were made that these are areas that are IT. So one of the things we want to do is we want to stand up transparency portal that shows the different processes. So for example, when we're going to do an RFP to purchase something, again, in that life cycle, there's many departments that get engaged, including the department that owns it. So having a clear process chart that shows here's the life cycle from start to finish to obtain a thing and who the different areas of ownership are and what the typical time frame is to complete. I mean, every contract is a little bit different, so it's hard to project. But in a general sense, give the business units an idea of how long it will take to get through the overall procurement process from idea to finish. We're also going to report out against our performance stats. So where we're at with some of our key performance metrics, which were also rolled out in March of this year. I apologize, actually, they were rolled out in May of this year. So we're going to be reporting out against our measurement against those objectives, each on a 30-day basis, but folks will have the opportunity to look back over a longer period of time if they'd like. And that will also be some of the stats that we discuss with the different departments when we meet with their leadership teams to help them understand, this is the number one, these are the top 3 ticket types that Public Works has seen over the last month, right? Maybe it's all around one piece of technology, or this is the top 3 kind of people who are submitting requests, because again, maybe there's a training issue there, or maybe they're in a role that's very unique and needs additional support. So we're trying to provide better transparency to the departments and helping them be informed of the challenges that their teams are facing as well. And then one of the final areas that we're really going to be focusing on is that we did do a presentation at the town hall on September 27th, and that was really, to my recollection, the first time IT's had the opportunity to speak to the citywide group in that type of setting. And we ran through a portion of the presentation to really start educating again and help folks understand these are the process changes that we're making, but this is also the rationale behind why some things are done. And so again, we're looking at additional training opportunities to go forward. We're looking at in next year's timeframe being able to go out and actually maybe do road shows at the different locations across the city. So it's not just at the AMC. Then when we're at the road show, have folks be able to walk up and be able to provide, if they have a specific support issue that they need help with, give them the support while we're there, or again, the opportunities. Apologize, I'm not sure where that echo is coming from. Can you still hear me okay, Council?
Yeah, I think that was me. I just went off screen because my I was having a tough time. It's cutting in and out, so I'm on my phone to hear you better.
Okay, gotcha. So we have many opportunities there coming up, and again, we're going to be collaborating with other departments. Terry and I have actually had some really good ideas around. There's some new GASB standards that really require auditing around technology, and that's going to require some additional process changes internally across the city. So Terry and I have talked about we can have a collaboration opportunity to educate folks across the city around what those requirements are and why we're doing them. So lots of upcoming engagement at the department level, as well as at the day-to-day departmental level, and then finally also just general education that we're going to roll out to the staff on a recurring basis. Specific to project management, again, like I mentioned earlier, the project lifecycle document from the time a project comes in as an idea till the time it is implemented, understanding what the different stakeholders are and their responsibilities and the timelines. We're going to, for the processes that are facing the department, so we obviously have a lot of internal processes, but the processes that we use that impact the other departments, we're going to make sure that those processes are documented in new flow charts. We're going to get those loaded up on the transparency portal, and again, provide opportunity to educate on each one of those if folks are so inclined to learn about them. We're going to continue through the BRM and BSM engagement to get improvement feedback, right? Ongoing continuous improvement process. What are the challenges? What are the pain points? Where are areas that we can work together to try and solve the problems? We have had a variety of templates that have been used over the years for different project management approaches, as Michelle mentioned. And again, we're looking at industry standard project templates that we can start rolling out and make that a consistent process, so that again, those can be loaded up on the transparency portal, and anybody at the city at any time could say, where are we at with a given project? Instead of just being able to see, you know, a percentage complete, they can actually go to the current project status update and read from the template. And because it's always the same template, they'll know exactly where to go to and what to look for each time they bring it up. And I already mentioned the industry standards and best practices. Department specific support. This is something that we're very excited about. So ServiceNow is the help desk system, and that was launched in October of last year. Unfortunately, when we first rolled it out, it was extremely painful because ServiceNow, it is a worldwide system. It's used by public and private sector across the world. So it's very high end on the industry. But because of that, it usually takes 12 to 18 months to implement. We only had 3 to get it done. So we rolled it out in a rush in 3 months time because we were up against a deadline with our old system that was no longer going to be supportable. So it was very bumpy getting it up. But fast forward to here a year later, it's much more stable, it's much more user-friendly. We have a lot more capabilities inside of it now, including the ability to slice and dice the data in more meaningful ways. So I'll get into that in just in a later slide here coming up. We also formally launched the service desk as a function on September 25th. So again, going back to the 2008 downturn, the idea of a help desk was eliminated from IT, and we haven't had that function since that time. But with the support of city management, we were able to bring on a couple contract positions, and we have now stood up the service desk again. So it's a dedicated group of people that are there specifically to provide support on, they can't provide support across the board on everything, but on some of the most common types of issues that people report. For the first time since 2008, we now have a dedicated phone line where people can call in and ask for support. We've provided the opportunity for support appointments. We heard that a lot. You know, people want to be able to come into IT. The reason we require appointments, though, is that sometimes the issue, again, that might not be an issue the service desk can help with, or there may already be people that we are already scheduled that we're supporting at that time. So we do request appointments, but we do have the ability now for walk-ins to get that support in person. And then finally, we've now rolled out a new remote support tool. So if folks are wherever they're at, if it's something that we think that we can quickly fix for them, we can remotely connect to their computer. We had limited capability through Teams to do that. This new tool actually provides us the ability to log in and do anything we need to on the machine as if it was sitting in front of us in person. So we're very excited. Those things have been in effect now since September 25th. And we've heard very, very positive feedback. They do tend to be pretty busy on mornings, usually from 8 a.m. until noon. And in the afternoons does tend to die down. But so far we have not had any bottlenecks or delays in getting support, we've been able to keep up with the volume that's coming in so far. How we prioritize the tickets, again, we formalize this. This goes back to service level objectives that we established back in May. So this chart just gives you the different breakdown and how we're doing it. If it's an enterprise-wide issue, so for example, if Office 365 just stopped working, nobody in the city could use it, it's very high impact to the people who are using it because they can get to email, Teams, or anything else, that would be considered critical. It's an enterprise-wide issue. If it, however, is a single user, that same example, who's having a problem getting into Office themselves, but again, that's the primary tool that they use to do their work, then it's considered moderate. We have to do this tiered approach to assign the priority, just begin based on the sheer volume of tickets we receive. We triage the tickets based on the nature of them and the type of issue that is encountered so that we can make sure that we're providing the right resources in taking care of the critical issues ahead of any of the moderate or low issues. And so to specifically address those, here's our objective. So if it is a critical issue, critical outage of some kind, we will respond within 10 minutes, meaning the staff will pick up the issue and start working on the problem. If it is within our control, our target resolution is within 1 hour. And the reason I say if it's within our control is, something that recently happened. Central Facilities, there was a company that was out in the field. They were using a backhoe and they cut the fiber line connecting between Central Facilities and the AMC. So that took down the network connection for Central Facilities. And so we personally were not able to resolve that within an hour, but we did immediately get a work crews assigned to it. And they actually were able to get that service restored probably about, I don't remember exactly, it's either 24 to 36 hours later. Unfortunately, that's quite a bit of time, but we were able to get them working on the issue immediately. And then we just see you've got the different categorizations: high, moderate, low. Plan and address is just, this may be an opportunity to work with the user to find a different solution. And so we just break it down into different priorities and response times there. Just to give you a sense of the volume of requests we have, so this is pulling the data from June through August. Incidents are what we classify as anything that's break fix. So again, something is broken, something is not working. A request is, can you do something for me? Can you install Adobe for me? Can you help me set up my printer? Can you give me permissions inside this application? So you'll see that we're fairly consistent. The numbers do change month over month, but we're averaging between 2,000 and 2,400 total requests on any given month that the staff are addressing month by month, in addition to the projects and the other areas that they're working on. Looking forward, this is, again, as I mentioned, our strategic roadmap that was rolled out in March. There's actually a lot of other areas that we're working on beyond just these immediate audit findings. So we prioritize the audit findings, and is actually on our roadmap to have a good chunk of those, probably 80% of them, addressed before the end of this year. Even though Michelle was gracious and said that we have till September of next year, we're actually targeting to get most of these addressed by the end of this year. There's additional areas that we're looking at continuing our focus and improvement on that we will continue through September of next year. But we've broken those into our 3 different areas of focus, which is business, technology, and an IT culture. So we're going to continue forward, make on our analytics, especially now that we have ServiceNow. We're going to do a lot more data-based decision making. What is our top trending ticket type? What is the top product that continues to have issues? What do we need to do to address those so that they're not issues anymore, and so that people don't have support problems with them? The additional support options that we're going to continue to roll out for the service desk will be real-time chat. So instead of having to pick up a phone or make an appointment, they can real-time chat with an IT person to get the support there. We're also rolling out a virtual chat agent, which is going to be able to help self-guide and resolve issues for people. If there's some automation that's tied in, maybe it can take care of the problem for them, so they don't even have to wait on IT. And if finally it's not something that they can do themselves, it will open up the ticket for them so that they don't have to go through the steps of opening up the ticket themselves. So a lot more self-service options that we're going to be rolling out. We're going to continue, again, advancing more consistent and repeatable processes instead of all the exceptions that are based on specific departments. To the extent that we can, we're going to make that consistent and repeatable across the board. We're going to continue forward at looking at ways that we automate more and more functions. So right around the corner, we have the ability for employee self-serve for password resets. We shouldn't need in the year 2023 for IT person to get in and do that reset. They should be able to do that automatically. So we're currently finishing up some integrations with Okta, and once that's in place, that's just one area that will automate that process for staff. We're going to continue that ongoing business engagement through those different areas that I mentioned previously. One of the things we really need to focus on heavily as part of what's driving our tickets so much is we have a lot of technical debt, and technical debt is older legacy technology that is really past its useful life. Some of that is because the departments haven't identified funding for replacements. Some of it is because it's a very unique or niche function. Some of it is we simply have not had the time to get to it. So we're going to continue to look at how we reduce technical debt and get on more modern platforms across the board, which should in turn help reduce some of our support demand that we're having today. We're also rolling out better workload management for the staff. So we're implementing a agile light approach with Kanban boards and sprints. They'll help provide on a bi-weekly basis. This is your expectation over the next 2 weeks, the areas that we need you to focus on. It gives the staff better predictability and stability, and then they're not feeling like they're getting pulled into 40 or 50 different directions on any given day. And another cultural area we're looking at is overall job classifications. We do have compression in our job families, and not compression in the sense of necessarily of salary, but a lot of our jobs, as an example, there's only 2 tiers of a network engineer inside our department, when really a lot of modern organizations have 4 or 5 tiers, and they get much more segmented based on specialization and training. So we're going to be working with HR. That's going to be a really big project. So we're going to work with HR and really help them define better job classifications, which provides better career advancement opportunities for the staff and provides better training opportunities. That will be definitely a 2024 effort, because that is going to be a lot of involvement between us and HR collaborating together to come up with a good, meaningful classification for those different groups that we have. And then finally, as Michelle mentioned, the organizational structure, whether or not we are organized in the appropriate way to support the business units. Again, like I said, we want to make data-based decisions. So I'm not going to make any recommendations to Roberto and Jason right now for organizational changes. We want to look at, again, after we have some solid data from our support demand, and we have some solid data from this engagement at the director level and the day-to-day operations level from the different departments, where do we really have the highest need for support areas? As we look at the industry standards and best practices, are there industry functions that we're not providing today? And there are functions that we just don't have the staffing right now to do, or we're not structured to do. So we want to make the organizational restructure that we do based on the data that we've collected. So we'll be revisiting that probably later into Q2 of next year after we have a good set of data to work off of. And I believe that was the last slide. So with that, I'll turn over for any questions.
Thanks, Scott. Any questions for Scott from the committee? Nope. Okay. Scott, appreciate this. This is very helpful. Look forward to seeing how it progresses and unfolds moving forward.
Thank you,
so
sir.
that was the final topic. Are there any miscellaneous items for consideration? If not, then the meeting is adjourned, and we'll see you all next month. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Hopefully WebEx works next month.
Bye all.
It is.